to another episode. So today we've got a lot to cover. Again, get your pen and paper out. We're going to go through how to improve your habits in a matter of minutes. I'm going to talk about the neuroscience behind building and sustaining habits and the NLP behind habits. Now, if you don't know, I'm an NLP master, so I do neuro-linguistic programming, which is where I essentially reprogram people's beliefs and subconscious mind to achieve whatever goal that they desire or the person they want to become. So I'm going to start with 3 tips just to get the brains ticking before we actually go into it. You will need a pen and paper for this episode if you're wanting to learn and you really actually want to make the change. If you don't, you want to listen on your walk, then also do that. That's completely fine. So number 1 is never ever from this point on call it a bad habit. Whatever your bad habit is, scrolling, self-sabotaging, complaining, moaning, smoking, whatever it is, I don't want you to call it a bad habit, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute, okay? Just a simple change of language can really help break that habit. Number 2 is your brain does not process negatives. So if you say, oh, stop eating this, I need to stop eating the rest of my dinner, all you are focusing on is then eating the rest of your dinner. Your brain doesn't process the stop. It doesn't process the negatives. It doesn't process, I need to stop putting on weight. All your brain registers is, I need to put on weight, because you are actually still focusing on the thing that you need to stop doing. Therefore, you're focusing on it. You're not focusing on something else. So, for example, if you're at the dinner table and you're like, oh, I need to stop eating this, I need to stop eating it, I need to stop eating it, or you're going to be focused on, I need to eat it, I need to eat it, I need to eat it. So what can you focus on instead? You could focus on having a better conversation. So instead of saying, I need to stop eating this food, you could say, I need to engage in a conversation right now instead of eating, right? Because then your brain is focused on that conversation rather than trying to stop eating the food. Does that make sense? Don't tell yourself to stop doing something. Focus on what you want to do instead to break that habit. And we'll go into that in more detail in a minute. Oh, and that was step 3, was to focus on what you want to do instead. Okay, so we're going to get straight into it. The next section we're going to break down in 3 parts. And when you learn this about habits and behaviours that you don't want, you will never ever go back, and you'll never be able to unsee it. You won't be able to unsee it in other people. You won't be able to unsee it in yourself. And it is literally like a life hack. So the first thing that I want you to do is write down a list, split it down the middle or top and bottom of the page. Write down your top 5 helpful habits, the ones that you really want, the ones that you maybe want more of, the ones that you want to do 90% of the time instead of 60% of the time, whatever those are. These are the ones that you're currently doing. Don't just write down things that you don't do and pretend that you do them. Let's be real. And then the second part is I want you to write down all your unhelpful habits. So things like scrolling in the morning, or staying up late and then snoozing your alarm, or not getting dressed for the day, or having a messy room, or complaining to your friends, or moaning, or I don't know, whatever it is that is your unhelpful, or comparing to other people. Write down your 5 unhelpful behaviours that you want to get rid of by the end of this bloody call, okay? Next to each of those habits, I'm going to see if I can put some examples down on the, we'll see how good my editing skills are. Next to each of those habits, what I want you to understand is that every single behaviour that we do as humans, we do it because it meets a need. We would not engage in a behaviour if it didn't meet a need, because there would simply be no reason to do the behaviour. It would just literally be an act, okay? So, for example, you have all these different needs. So things like certainty, validation, security, safety, comfort, love, attention, contribution, growth. There are so many different human needs. Now, every single one of those behaviours that you've written down will meet a need in some sort of way. So for example, let's just say that you complain and you can't stop complaining, and you do more complaining than you do taking action. You are getting something out of complaining, else you wouldn't do it. If you didn't get anything from complaining, if no one gave you any reassurance or any love back or any support, or they kept you in victim, you wouldn't continue complaining. You just wouldn't do it because it would have no benefit to complain, right? So if we look at complaining and we think, okay, this is an unhelpful behaviour, it's not a helpful behaviour at all, but we're doing it for a positive reason. Ask yourself that question. This is a very unhelpful habit. It's a very unhelpful behaviour, but I'm doing it for a positive intent. There's a positive reason as to why I'm doing it. What am I getting out of doing this behaviour? Every time I complain, what do I secretly get that I actually love getting out of this behaviour? Because there will be something that you secretly love about it, and that's why you can't stop doing it. So yes, consciously you want to stop it, you want more progression, you want more success, you want more growth, but there is a part of you that thrives off having this behaviour. So I want you to write down next to each behaviour, what do you secretly get from that behaviour? So for example, leaving things till last minute and being really stressed, do you get a sense of validation for it? Do you get a bit of an ego boost, a sense of significance, the fact that you've done it all last minute? And maybe you did that in school, you left revising last minute, you got it all done, you smashed the exams, and that made you feel good because that was a flex back then. Maybe it's not a flex now because it means that you're stressed all the time and you can't grow because you're constantly stressed. Or maybe scrolling in the morning gives you a sense of connection and comfort to yourself. When I am scrolling in bed, it's my mind's opportunity to force me to stop and gain rest. So maybe you're gaining comfort and you're gaining connection. Or when you feel sorry for yourself, it is an opportunity for you to connect with yourself. That is literally what it is. Feeling sorry for yourself is meeting your need of connection. Okay? And when you understand that that's all it's doing, we can obviously start to find other ways to meet that need instead. Or let's just say a unhelpful addictive habit like smoking or something is giving you certainty. It's going to be certain that you gain pleasure in that moment from pain. From a stressful day, it is certain that you gain pleasure. So it's giving you certainty. Or let's just say comparing to everyone else gives you a feeling of significance, okay? Maybe down comparing to people who are not doing as well as you makes you feel significant, but it's still an act of comparing, it's not very helpful. And even up comparing to people who are doing better than you is a feeling of insignificance. You're still chasing a feeling of significance. You're trying to place yourself in some sort of order of hierarchy by measuring against other people, okay? So I want you to write down all the habits and all the needs. Now, once you've written down all those needs, I'm going to put a list of examples somewhere up there. I want you to then write down, and these are called secondary gains. You are gaining something from doing the behavior, and it's a secondary gain, okay? So I want you to write down all of the gains that you are gaining, like comfort, love, attention, validation, reassurance, safety, support, whatever you were previously gaining. And then I want you to start writing down new behaviours that gain you the same thing. So how can you meet that need of connection in a more helpful way than feeling sorry for yourself? So if feeling sorry for yourself makes you feel connected to yourself, it gives you that sense of, I'm with myself, everything's really hard. How else can you gain that feeling of connection in a more helpful way? Could you contribute? Could you help someone else? Could you gain connection with loved ones? Could you say, hey, I'm really struggling at the moment, can you give me some support? And help me move through it instead of keep me in victim. Or let's just say you gain a sense of significance from writing really long to-do lists, really over planning, really leaving things till last minute. Could you gain the same amount of significance through writing a realistic to-do list, ticking it all off, and then going and telling your partner that you've got all of this done today when they walk through the door after work saying, hey, how's your day gone? And instead of going, oh my God, I'm so stressed, I've got nothing done, you could now go, oh, I've actually got loads done. This is what I've done today. Look how much I've ticked off. Gaining validation and significance, right? Could you, instead of scrolling on your phone to gain comfort, could you plan in ways to give you comfort? So like after work, you could chill, or you could make a nice dinner and that could give you a sense of comfort, or you could run a nice bath after you finish work. That could gain you a sense of comfort. Knowing that you've got that thing that gives you comfort to look forward to would make you more likely want to get out of bed in the morning to get the hard thing done, to then know that you are gaining comfort afterwards. Does that make sense? So every single secondary gain, I want you to find a new way to achieve the same thing, but in a way that moves you forward to the person that you want to become. Now, part 2 is we want to reinforce this habit immediately. And there is a difference between reinforcement and reward. So when you achieve a goal, like a milestone, like you've lost 5 kilograms or 3 kilograms or even 2 pounds, of part of your goal, let's just say your goal is weight loss. I always use weight loss as an example, it's so easy to understand. You reward yourself, you feel good, you feel that sense of reward, right? It's like an accomplishment. However, what you won't be doing is you won't be reinforcing positive behaviours along the way that got you to that goal, that got you the reward. So for example, let's just say that you decide in a moment after work, I really don't want to go on a walk, but I'm going to go on a walk. And then in that moment that you go on a walk, yes, you haven't lost 2 pounds in that moment. You're doing a behaviour that is getting you towards a goal that's going to give you the reward. So how can you reinforce yourself in that moment on that walk? Reinforce that positive behaviour that's getting you towards your goal. So for example, can you just give yourself like a little, not literally, but I mean you could if you wanted to, a little pat on the back, say, yeah, do you know what, this feels great, I really don't want to do this, but like I'm so glad I'm doing it, this is really hard, but actually, do you know what, this shows a lot of power in who I am, this shows a lot of commitment, and I'm just going to give myself a little bit of credit for that. How would you then feel on your walk if you were doing that? How would you then feel if you started linking that pleasure and that reinforcement of the behaviour that's getting you towards your goal every single day? How would it feel if you started becoming that person who did go on the walk and did reinforce that behaviour, and you were becoming that person, you actually gave yourself credit for that? You'd have a little spring in your step, wouldn't you? You'd have a little bit of flex. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm becoming this person. This is great. Like every time that everyone else sits on the sofa, you're going out for a walk. How would that feel, knowing that you're becoming that person? You start validating that identity. You'll want to do it more often because you're getting reinforced with it. You're getting a secondary gain from doing it. You're getting validation. You're getting significance. You're getting a sense of growth. These are all needs that we all have to meet in some sort of way. And if you can meet them in a way that moves you towards your goal, then you're going to be great. You're going to be flying. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to reinforce the behavior every time that you do it. It doesn't have to be every time, because then it becomes, you get a bit, the novelty sort of wears off. But every so often you want to reinforce that behavior. So let's just say you do a piece of content that you really don't want to do, just reward yourself afterwards. Like, do you know what? I really didn't want to do that, but I'm recognizing myself for doing it, and wow, like, I'm so glad I did that. Or after a run, start picturing yourself at the end of the run, how you're going to feel, the sense of accomplishment that you're going to have, the feeling of significance that you have, the growth that you're going to have. Yes, it might not be the end goal, but it's part of the goal. And just start thinking about that and rewarding yourself on the run before you've even finished the run. Because what's happening then is your mind is associating the goal and the action that's required to achieve the goal with pleasure. And when you start associating pleasure with the behavior, the desired behavior, you will do it more often and more often and more often. It's the same with a dog. You get it to sit, you give it a treat, okay? You do it over and over and over again until it starts sitting without needing a treat, because it's reinforced, okay? So don't wait until you've achieved the goal. Start reinforcing the behavior that gets you there with a feeling of pleasure, with a sense of pleasure, with a sense of accomplishment, a sense of achievement, a sense of connection, whatever that need is that you need to meet. And then my third point of this video, and the last point, is if to break old habits, you must create a gap between the trigger and actually performing the behavior. So for example, if your habit is always you get in after work, the trigger is, I had a really hard day at work. Boom, we're going to the cupboard. That's what we've learned. Hard day at work, I need pleasure immediately. I'm going to go to the cupboard. That's literally what the association is, right? If you can create a gap between that trigger, I've had a hard day at work, and the actual reward, the pleasure of the behavior, if you can create a gap between that, so for example, you can go upstairs, take your clothes off, put some nice chill clothes on, have a shower, whatever, then come back downstairs once you're ready. And then if you still want it, fair enough. But you might find that in that moment, you then don't want it because you've created a gap that's broken down that pattern of the trigger comes, I go and feed that trigger immediately. And what it does is it creates this gap for you to actually question what it is that you actually need in that moment. So for example, if we know that grabbing the packet of biscuits after work gives you a sense of pleasure, well, what else can you do to gain a sense of pleasure? For example, having a shower, getting in your pajamas, or maybe going on a walk straight away and then coming back and feeling that sense of reward and then making a nice dinner. Would that bring you the same amount of pleasure and comfort? Yes, it might be harder, but in the end, it probably would bring you the same amount of pleasure and that feeling of reward, which is pleasure. When you feel rewarded and you feel like you've done something great and you've achieved something, that is pleasure, right? So you want to create this gap and you want to find ways to create a gap. And the way I suggest that you do it is through questions. So number one is, so in that moment when you get in from work or you're about to scroll or you're about to self-sabotage, which is literally what you do when you perform these unhelpful habits because they meet a need, I want you to have a set of questions that you ask yourself every single time that need that, I just want to scroll, I just want to procrastinate, I just want to self-sabotage. Every time that comes in, I want you to ask yourself a set of questions. And this is a set of questions where I want you to imagine that your higher self, who has everything that you want, walks into the room in that moment that you want to self-sabotage, and he or she asks you 3 questions to help you move through it. So for example, now you know what need the behavior is meeting. The first question that they could ask you is, why are you actually doing this? Why are you actually wanting to eat that? Why do you actually want to procrastinate? Why do you actually want to scroll? Like, what is the, and I suggest using the word actual, because why is the reason, oh, I just want to scroll. No, why do you actually want to scroll? Oh, because I just want some comfort. I just want some dopamine. Okay, then the second question might be, how can you gain that in a more helpful way? Oh, well, I could go on a walk, or, oh, well, I could actually jump on my stories and answer some questions, or I could contribute in some way, or I could write a realistic to-do list, or instead of worrying, I could choose to make a massive plan and a massive action plan, and that would be the antidote to worrying. Or instead of feeling depressed, I could find a way to contribute and help someone else, so it takes the focus off from me and puts it onto someone else, and therefore my focus is on someone else, and I'm therefore behaving in that way, right? And then the third question could be, how would you feel if you did that? Oh my God, I would probably feel horrible to start with. Let's not beat around the bush, because I don't want to do it. But actually, afterwards, I would probably feel amazing, and I'd probably still meet that need. So therefore, I would feel good. I would feel connected. I would feel validated. I would feel significant. I would feel growth. I would feel accomplished. I would feel comfort. Okay? So ask yourself 3 questions. So every time the trigger comes in, you're about to pick up your phone and you're about to go and eat that. You're about to go and moan. You're about to go and complain. Hold on a minute. Go, what would my higher self ask me in this moment to help me move through it? And you need to use questions, not statements, because telling yourself to stop scrolling doesn't fucking work, does it? It might work every so often when you go, right, I'm stopping scrolling now, boom. But you don't naturally do that yourself. You will do it when you're fed up of scrolling and you've been scrolling for about an hour and you're like, right, I'm not scrolling anymore. We don't want to be doing it for an hour. So every time you're about to do the behaviour, ask yourself a set of questions. Have those questions, stick them on your computer, stick them on your fucking mouse, stick them on your fridge, stick them everywhere around your house, and always be asking yourself those questions, because it is breaking down the gap. And if your gap is, the trigger comes in and I perform a behaviour, if that's here, that's very blended. If we can have the trigger comes in, I'm going to ask myself a question, create a massive gap, and then I'm going to replace it with a new behaviour. Then over time, you will strengthen those neural pathways with the new behaviour. So it is really important to don't tell yourself to stop doing something. Tell yourself what you want to do instead, what you want to focus on instead. You will not change a habit by just telling yourself to stop doing something. You have to replace it with something more helpful. Okay? Now, that is everything. If you have any questions down below, please drop them. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will see you in the next video, which I think is maybe, internal conflicts. We're going to do internal conflicts. So if you have a part of you that loves to have fun, part of you loves to succeed, or part of you loves to eat crap, part of you that loves to be on it, part of you that loves to work towards your goals, there's a part of you that loves a bit of victim, whatever it is, wherever your mind is pulled in 2 different directions. Do I hire this team? Do I stay solo? Do I add more team members? Do I launch this? Do I do, like, whatever your internal conflict is that you keep going back and forward like a fucking tennis match, then we're going to be doing that next video. So I'm very excited for that one, and it will blow your mind. So I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you soon.